Toxic company culture, poor leadership, and micromanaging are just some of the things that lead to a really unhappy working environment. HR Specialist Cindy Hendricks joins us on the couch to chat about what companies can do to promote wellness in the workplace and keep talented and top-performing employees happy. It makes so much sense to me. It's amazing that more people don't do it. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
If you consider the amount of time that people spend at work, and the amount of effort that they put at work, how is it that sometimes, and more often than not, so many people are so unhappy at work?
So it starts with a toxic company culture, and some of the things you've mentioned. So it's things like micromanagement, low or no trust in employees and their capabilities. Another thing that affects employees is if their personal values clashes with that of the company. So things like I'm family orientated, but the company expects me to be available 24/7. And those are the things that sort of make them unhappy. Inconsistent treatment between employees and favoritism. So those are the things that, just affect people negatively.
Do you think if somebody isn't doing what they're passionate about, like it's not their dream job, do you think if they had worked in a good work environment, they would still be happy with it?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Or do you think somebody's only happy when they're doing 100% what their dream and what their passion job is?
I think there's a portion of wanting to do what you're passionate about, but the environment definitely does contribute towards that. Like you said, you spend so many hours of the 24 hours we spend at work, and so it's got to be comfortable and it's got to be conducive, to be able to operate.
Exactly. Have you watched the documentary? And everybody at home must watch this. It's such a good documentary. It's one by Michael Moore called Where to Invade Next, and he travels across the world to find some of the places with the best education system or the best productivity. And the country with the best productivity, I think, was Italy. And they've got the least working hours in the world. They've got the best holidays. They've got the best healthcare. They've got the companies just look after their employees. So I think security and job satisfaction are two different things.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think people are more led by security than they are by other kinds of happiness, like the content, I suppose, of the work that they're doing?
Yeah. So it's 50-50. You get types of people that just work for a paycheck, and then they just do that. And then there are people that work because they are passionate about it. And so I think companies need to be able to cater to both those sorts of people, and still help them be happy at work.
Yeah. I think bosses don't really want to micromanage, but I think, and I imagine you're the boss, your only focus is productivity and getting the best and the most out of those hours that people are at work. But don't you think making sure everybody is happy is micromanaging to a point? And how can, I suppose, managers and bosses make sure that their employees are happy?
So there's a number of things I think that you need to be able to do. So you need to, I think in this day and age, flexibility is a big thing for many people, young and old. I mean, you can say millennials want flexibility, but I think it talks to all people, young and old. And people want to be able to work whenever and wherever. And with technology, I think we're able to do that today. So this sort of idea of clock watching or being in an office, it doesn't talk, it doesn't speak to people today. So people want to be able to be themselves and work in the best way that suits them. I think clocking in is almost insulting, because I know for me, and I mean, I've never worked in an office in my entire life, thankfully, but I can imagine if somebody was expecting me to be somewhere at a time and I had to clock out at a time, I would sit there getting anxiety, feeling watched, and I wouldn't feel productive because, you get boosts of energy when you are inspired, I suppose. Well, that's my job. But I suppose it's like that in any kind of career. I mean, but is it realistic to give your employees a lot of freedom to be able to decide for themselves what their working hours are? It's very company specific and I think industry specific. In a service sort of environment or industry, it's very difficult to, you've got to be there. But then you've got to allow people to service the clients in the way that best suits them. And then I think for industries where you can allow people to not be in the office, companies should really consider that, because the reality is that people are at work from 8 till 5, but how productive are they really during that time? People are on Facebook, people are on the internet, and very
constantly.
low, they spend very little hours actually doing any work.
Low productivity rates.
And so output based, so companies should possibly start looking at outputs as opposed to clocking in and out.
I'm honestly most productive at like 1 o'clock in the morning. That's when I get all of my admin done. So I would definitely not survive in an office. But now, just say you are in an office environment, what tips do you have for employees and employers to kind of open communication channels so that these kind of things can be straightened out, so that everyone is happy at work? I think happiness at work is so important.
So I think companies can look at the policies, and companies can look at allowing people the sort of flexibility or extended time off. Sick leave as an example, companies or the employee gets 30 days sick leave for 3 years, and so companies can look at extending sick leave as an example when people are perhaps depressed and they are going for treatment.
Can you get into trouble or fired or dismissed from work if you do take time off for being depressed?
No. So yes and no. So the short answer is yes. You could be fired, but the company has to follow a process. So if you are diagnosed with depression and you've got to go to a facility, as an example, they've got to allow that. And the company can only really fire you or dismiss you when they've followed a process and they've established medically that you are incapable of doing your job.
Wow. You know, obviously we work in a really amazing TV studio, but one of my favorite things to say is we're in the business of fun, and you spend so much time with the people around you. They become like your family.
Yes.
So if you are not enjoying it, nobody else around you is going to enjoy it either.
Yes.
So you've just got to try and put out as much positive energy to the people around you as possible. So hopefully that works in the corporate world as well. Thank you so much for being here. We'll chat about this more later.